Hello and greetings. Well, the first $1 million question is, why did I join the Navy? Well, actually, it was a combination of, I'll say, 3 to 4 things. One, having a tangible example, which were family members in my household. Two was the environment in which I was growing up in and, wanting to give myself better and greater opportunities. Three was the apprenticeship program that I was in high school, which gave me the opportunity to explore new things and told me about the opportunities that was available for me in the military. And three, I would say, well, four, I mean, was being in ROTC in high school. So with all of them together, I'm gonna talk about it and put it in perspective. So just like Barack becoming president, what it was, it gave young black men a tangible example of something that you can actually achieve and do. So, for example, what I mean by that is back when young black men thought about being president, it was a pipe dream. But once Barack Obama made president, it gave us a tangible example of something that we can achieve. So for me, those two tangible examples I had were my cousin Shorty, which is like an uncle to me. We call him Uncle Shorty, and my cousin Jim. So back when I was probably in middle school, my cousin Jim, he was in the Navy, and he wound up getting out and going to the reserves, and he was going to college in Orlando. So he's from Clearwater, Florida area, but since he was going to college in Orlando, he came and lived with me and my grandmother. And it was there as I was probably like in sixth grade. I used to pick his brain and ask some questions about the Navy, and he used to tell me about the stories of traveling overseas, and about the girls and the money and the opportunities. And he had this car at the time that back then that I didn't even know what foreign cars was, but it was an Audi. And I remember it was a nice car. He used to take me riding in it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I want to join the Navy and get these type of things. So fast forward, being in the hood, being around hood stuff, it was typical, me and all my friends, none of us had fathers in our lives. And, we were in the streets and being raised by the streets. So, that's what we knew. So by the time I got to high school, for whatever reason, ROTC piqued my interest. So I probably was like in the 10th grade, I joined ROTC, and it kind of, taught me structure and how to put on the uniform and taught me some of the basics of what the military was about. So, I was real interested in joining the Air Force. So going into my 11th grade year, they introduced us to an apprenticeship program. And what it consisted of was you learned the construction trade, and you also went to school every other day. So you had to have good grades and meet these other criterias to get into it. So I submitted for it, not thinking I would get it, but I just submitted for it anyway. And lo and behold, I got accepted into it. Now during that time, I made a critical key decision, and it was to stay at my high school because of the apprenticeship program. Because at that time, a lot of my friends were leaving my high school, which was Oak Ridge, and they was going to Jones High School. And I was very, very tempted to transfer and try to go to Jones also. But something told me, man, let me stay here at Oak Ridge and take advantage of this apprenticeship program. And it was one of the best decisions at the time that I could have made. So through it, it taught me the electrical trade. So we used to go to school one day, and we used to go to the school at the Mid-Florida Tech and learn the construction trade. And we did that my 11th grade year, and the way how they had it set up was during the summer, you would go work for an electrical company, which was Tri-City Electric, and you will earn money just like a regular civilian and, still get your high school credits. So while I was working at the construction site, my foreman at the time, he asked me, hey, Wes, when you graduate high school, what's your plans? What do you plan to do? And I was like, well, I'm thinking about going to the military. He was like, well, have you ever heard about the Navy Seabees? You seem to be real good at construction and the trades, so maybe you should look into that. So I was like, wow, Seabees, what's that? That was my first time even hearing anything about the Seabees. And I knew I wanted to go to the military, but I was unsure of which branch of and what I wanted to do. So by the time all the different recruiters started hitting me up, I was like, hey, well, what's this thing about the Navy Seabees? So at the time, nobody didn't really know much about it. They couldn't really give me much information. So I was still contemplating on the different branches of, which one I wanted to go to. So I was really trying to get in touch with the Air Force recruiter. But anybody that know anything about the Air Force, they don't do much recruiting because most people know that that's the path of least resistance. They wait for people to come to their office, as opposed to the Army, the Navy, or the Marines. They're out in the field knocking on doors at schools trying to get people to join up. So I went to talk to the Marines, and he was giving me all this, GI Joe talks, but I was like, okay, well, what about my job? What would I be doing? And his answer just didn't sit well with me because he couldn't even tell me nothing about the job. He was just more talking on Rambo's type talk. So I put them on the back burner. The Army recruiter, it was a black woman. I take my hat off to her because she was the most consistent. She was on me. She was coming by the house all the time. She was calling me. She was coming to pick me up, and she was really giving it to me blood raw of what the Army and what the military consists of. Well, the Navy recruiter, which was a kind of older gentleman, white guy, he came and picked me up one day, and he took me to the station, and he was telling me about the different jobs. So I asked him about Seabees, and even him himself, he didn't know much. But what I credit him is he did the research. He was like, you know what, I don't know right now much about it, but I will let you know. So he went and did the research, and he came back and he told me about the Navy Seabees and what they consist of. So fast forward, as I was contemplating the different branches, I finally was like, you know what, man, if I stay around here around the hood, I'm going to get caught up in, hood activities, and, who knows where I could end up at. So let me step up on the limb and, see what this military thing is about. So the Navy recruiter, they was like, hey, we're doing a trip to Jacksonville. Would you like to just ride with us so you can kind of go on the base and see what it's like? So he talked me into it, and I rode with him to Jacksonville, and we went and looked at the ships and, went around the base. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And he used a tactic on me, at time, I got finessed that, I look back and laugh at. He was like, hey, well, let's just take the ASVAB test and see where you stand. No strings attached. So took the test, and, lo and behold, I did actually real good on it. I scored a high test, and I was eligible for all these different jobs. So finally, come like December before I graduated, he took me down to the MEP station in Tampa, and they gave me a list of job and opportunities, and they actually offered me corpsman at the time, which is the medical field. And I was like, nah, man, I don't want to be dealing with blood and people and giving shots and stuff like that. I'm interested in the Seabees. What do you have in the Seabees? And the guy was like, well, let me look. I was like, I do electrical work now, so, do you have anything in that job? So he looked up and he was like, well, actually, the only thing I have in the Seabees is utilities man. So I'm like, well, what does that consist of? So he gave me a sheet, and, it was in terms that I didn't really understand, which I laughed at the time, not knowing that a UT, which is the job they were offering me, is a plumber, amongst other things, but you're going to be dealing with toilets and poop and all that stuff, which I'm going to get to that later. But I was like, all right, give it to me. So here I am. I done turned down corpsman, which is the medical field, because I didn't want to be dealing with blood and giving shots, not knowing I'm going to be dealing with piss and poop and, lift stations and porta potties and things of that nature. So right then and there at a MEP station, I signed up and I agreed to join the Navy, and they put me in a delayed entry program. And fast forward, graduated in May 16th from Oak Ridge High School. 2 weeks later, I was at MEP station getting ready to go off to boot camp. And that's how and why I joined the Navy.